The late Roman Republic was marked by significant internal conflicts and political upheavals, with the efforts of the Gracchi brothers, Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, standing out as pivotal moments in this turbulent period. The Gracchi brothers sought to address the socio-economic disparities within Roman society, challenging the entrenched power of the senatorial elite and advocating for reforms that would benefit the common people. Hello, and welcome to this soothing journey through the fascinating history of ancient Rome. In this ASMR video, we will explore the rich tapestry of Roman history, designed to help you relax and gently fall asleep. Now, let's begin our peaceful exploration of ancient Rome. Tiberius Gracchus, the elder of the two brothers, was elected tribune of the plebs in 133 BCE. Coming from a distinguished family, Tiberius was deeply influenced by the growing economic inequalities and the plight of the small farmers in Rome. The expansion of the Roman Empire had led to the concentration of land in the hands of a few wealthy elites, who established large estates, latifundia, worked by slaves. This trend displaced many small farmers, who were increasingly pushed into poverty and unable to compete with the slave labor. In response to this crisis, Tiberius proposed the Lex Sempronia Agraria, a land reform law aimed at redistributing public land, ager publicus, to landless Roman citizens. His proposal sought to limit the amount of public land any individual could hold, and to distribute the surplus land to the poor, thus revitalizing the class of small farmers and addressing the growing socioeconomic divide. Tiberius's reform faced immediate and fierce opposition from the Senate, which was dominated by wealthy landowners who viewed his proposal as a direct threat to their economic interests and political power. The Senate attempted to block his reforms by using another tribune, Marcus Octavius, who vetoed Tiberius's proposals. In a bold and unprecedented move, Tiberius responded by calling for Octavius's removal from office, arguing that a tribune who opposed the will of the people should not hold office. This action heightened tensions and polarized the political environment. Despite the opposition, Tiberius managed to push his land reform through the popular assembly, bypassing the Senate. He then formed a land commission to implement the redistribution, but his actions had already alienated many powerful senators. Seeking to consolidate his power and ensure the continuation of his reforms, Tiberius sought re-election as tribune for a second term, a move that was highly controversial and seen by his opponents as a bid for tyranny. The political climate grew increasingly volatile, and on the day of the election, a violent confrontation erupted. Tiberius and his supporters were attacked by a mob led by senators, including Publius Cornelius Scipio Nasica. Tiberius was killed in the ensuing chaos, along with many of his followers. His death marked one of the first instances of political violence in the Roman Republic and set a dangerous precedent for future conflicts. The legacy of Tiberius Gracchus was carried forward by his younger brother, Gaius Gracchus, who was elected tribune a decade later in 123 BCE. Gaius was determined to continue his brother's work and implemented an even more ambitious agenda of reforms. He introduced a series of laws aimed at curbing the power of the Senate and addressing the needs of the poor and disenfranchised. One of Gaius's key reforms was the extension of Roman citizenship to the Italian allies, who had long been loyal to Rome but were excluded from its political privileges. This proposal was designed to integrate these allies more fully into the Roman state and secure their support. Additionally, Gaius implemented measures to regulate grain prices, ensuring that affordable grain was available to the urban poor, thus providing a safety net against food shortages and economic instability. Gaius also sought to reduce the Senate's control over the judicial system by transferring the power to try corrupt officials from the senatorial courts to the equestrian class. This move was intended to curb corruption and create a more impartial system of justice. Furthermore, Gaius established colonies for resettling the poor, both within Italy and in newly conquered territories, providing opportunities for land ownership and economic advancement. Despite his progressive agenda, Gaius faced formidable opposition from the Senate, which viewed his reforms as a direct challenge to their authority. Like his brother, Gaius encountered significant resistance and hostility from the ruling elite. His efforts to secure a third term as tribune further intensified the political strife. In 121 BCE, the situation reached a critical point when Gaius and his followers occupied the Aventine Hill, seeking to rally support and protect themselves from their opponents. The Senate responded by issuing the Senatus Consultum Ultimum, a decree that granted the consuls extraordinary powers to protect the state. This decree effectively authorized the use of force against Gaius and his supporters. A violent clash ensued, resulting in the deaths of many of Gaius's followers. Realizing that his cause was lost, Gaius chose to take his own life rather than be captured. His death, like that of his brother, marked a significant and tragic moment in the history of the Roman Republic. The reforms of the Gracchi brothers and the violent reactions they provoked had profound and lasting consequences for the Roman Republic. Their efforts to address economic inequality and champion the rights of the common people exposed the deep-seated social and political tensions within Roman society. The deaths of the Gracchi brothers underscored the Republic's inability to peacefully resolve its internal conflicts and highlighted the increasing polarization and use of violence in Roman politics. The Gracchi brothers' legacy continued to influence Roman politics and reform movements in the years that followed. Their martyrdom for the cause of social justice inspired subsequent leaders and reformers, such as Julius Caesar, who sought to address the issues of land redistribution and economic inequality. The conflicts and reforms initiated by the Gracchi brothers also set the stage for the eventual decline of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire, as Rome struggled to reconcile the competing interests of its diverse and expanding population. In conclusion, the Gracchi brothers were pivotal figures in the late Roman Republic, whose attempts to implement social and economic reforms challenged the power of the senatorial elite and highlighted the deep-rooted inequalities in Roman society. Their efforts, met with violent resistance, revealed the fragility of the Republic's political system and set a precedent for future conflicts and upheavals. The legacy of the Gracchi brothers continued to shape Roman politics and reform movements, leaving an enduring impact on the history of the Republic and its eventual transformation into an empire. The Social War, 91-88 BCE, also known as the War of the Allies, was a significant conflict in the late Roman Republic, highlighting the tensions between Rome and its Italian allies over issues of citizenship and political rights. This war arose from long-standing grievances among the Italian allies, Socii, who had contributed significantly to Rome's military and economic power, but were denied the rights and privileges of Roman citizenship. The immediate catalyst for the social war was the assassination of the tribune Marcus Livius Drusus in 91 BCE. Drusus had proposed a series of reforms, including the extension of Roman citizenship to the Italian allies. His assassination, likely orchestrated by political opponents who feared the dilution of their power, sparked outrage among the allies, who felt betrayed by Rome. The Italian allies had long served as crucial components of Rome's military forces, providing soldiers who fought in Rome's numerous wars of expansion. Despite their contributions, they were treated as second-class citizens, without the right to vote or participate in the political process. This lack of political representation and the economic exploitation by Roman elites created deep resentment. Following Drusus's assassination, the Allies decided to take drastic action. Several central and southern Italian tribes, including the Samnites, Marsi, and others, formed a confederation and declared war on Rome. They established their own capital at Corfinium, which they renamed Italica, and created a parallel political structure to challenge Roman authority. Their goal was to gain full Roman citizenship and the accompanying rights. The war was characterized by brutal and widespread fighting, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. Initially, the Roman Senate underestimated the scale and seriousness of the rebellion. Rome was caught off guard by the extent of the coordination and determination of the Italian allies. The initial Roman response was sluggish and inadequate, leading to several early victories for the Allies. As the conflict intensified, Rome realized the need for a more substantial and coordinated military response. The Senate appointed capable generals such as Lucius Julius Caesar, not to be confused with the more famous Julius Caesar, and Gnaeus Pompeius Strabo, to lead the Roman forces. These commanders implemented more effective strategies and mobilized additional resources to combat the rebellion. Rome's military response combined direct confrontation with political concessions. As the war progressed, Rome passed several laws to undermine the unity of the Italian Confederation. The Lex Julia, enacted in 90 BCE, granted Roman citizenship to any Italian ally who laid down arms and accepted Roman authority. This law was a strategic move to weaken the resolve of the rebels and encourage defections. The Lex Plautia Papiria followed in 89 BCE, further extending citizenship to those who had not yet surrendered but were willing to do so. These political concessions were effective in breaking the cohesion of the Allied forces. Many Italian communities, weary of the prolonged conflict and enticed by the promise of citizenship, began to defect from the Confederation. Rome's strategy of combining military pressure with political incentives gradually shifted the momentum in its favor. The decisive battles of the social war took place in central and southern Italy. The Roman legions, benefiting from superior training and organization, began to systematically dismantle the Allied resistance. Key victories, such as those at the battles of Mount Falernus and the capture of Corfinium, marked the turning points of the war. By 88 BCE, the major centers of resistance had been subdued, and the war effectively came to an end. The social war had significant and lasting consequences for the Roman Republic. The most immediate outcome was the extension of Roman citizenship to the Italian allies, fulfilling one of the primary demands of the rebels. This integration fundamentally altered the political landscape of Rome. The inclusion of new citizens from across Italy into the Roman political system created new dynamics and shifted the balance of power. The newly enfranchised Italians gained the right to vote, serve in public office, and participate in the legal and political processes of the Republic. The integration of the Italian allies into the Roman political system also necessitated administrative changes. The Roman Senate had to address the practicalities of incorporating a vast number of new citizens into the existing structures. This led to reforms in the organization of the assemblies and adjustments in the distribution of political representation. The increased diversity within the citizen body required Rome to adopt more inclusive and flexible governance practices. The social war also had significant social and economic implications. The war caused widespread devastation in many parts of Italy, leading to economic disruptions and the displacement of populations. The reconstruction efforts in the aftermath of the conflict required substantial resources and coordination. The integration of the Italian allies also meant that Rome had to address the economic disparities and ensure that the benefits of citizenship were accessible to all. The extension of citizenship to the Italian allies marked a crucial step in the evolution of the Roman state. It set a precedent for the further extension of citizenship to other peoples within the expanding Roman Empire. This policy of inclusion helped to create a more cohesive and unified state, which was essential for managing a vast and diverse empire. However, the social war also exposed the deep-rooted issues within the Roman Republic. The conflict highlighted the Republic's inability to address the legitimate grievances of its allies through peaceful means. The resort to violence and the use of emergency powers by the Senate set troubling precedents for the future. The war also underscored the growing tensions between the ruling elite and the broader population, foreshadowing the internal conflicts that would continue to plague the Republic. The aftermath of the social war saw the rise of influential military leaders who played critical roles in subsequent conflicts. Figures such as Sulla and Pompey, who gained prominence during the war, would later become central actors in the political and military struggles of the late Republic. The war also contributed to the militarization of Roman politics, as successful generals leveraged their military achievements to gain political power and influence. In summary, the social war was a pivotal conflict in the history of the Roman Republic. It addressed the long-standing grievances of the Italian allies by extending Roman citizenship and integrating them into the political system. The war had profound social, economic, and political consequences, reshaping the structure of the Republic and setting the stage for future developments. The legacy of the social war highlights the complexities of managing a diverse and expanding state and the challenges of balancing the interests of different social and political groups. The Spartacus Rebellion, also known as the Third Servile War, 73-71 BCE, was the largest and most significant slave uprising in the history of the Roman Republic. Led by the gladiator Spartacus, the rebellion posed a severe threat to Roman authority and exposed the vulnerabilities of Rome's slave-dependent economy. The revolt had profound implications for Roman society and military policy. Spartacus, originally from Thrace, was a gladiator who had been captured and sold into slavery. He was trained at a gladiatorial school in Capua, a city renowned for its brutal gladiatorial contests. In 73 BCE, Spartacus and about 70 other gladiators orchestrated a daring escape, seizing kitchen utensils and makeshift weapons to overpower their guards. They fled to the slopes of Mount Vesuvius, where they were soon joined by other runaway slaves and disaffected rural laborers, swelling their numbers to several thousand. Spartacus proved to be an exceptional leader, capable of uniting a diverse group of rebels and organizing them into a formidable fighting force. His initial success was due in part to the Roman Senate's underestimation of the rebellion. Rome, preoccupied with external threats and internal political strife, dispatched poorly equipped and inadequately led forces to suppress the uprising. Spartacus's forces, highly motivated and fighting for their freedom, defeated these early Roman detachments and acquired better arms and equipment. The goals of the Spartacus rebellion evolved over time. Initially, Spartacus aimed to lead his followers out of Italy to escape Roman rule. His strategy involved moving north through Italy, crossing the Alps, and dispersing his forces to their homelands. However, his followers, emboldened by their victories and the plunder they acquired, persuaded Spartacus to remain in Italy to continue raiding and exacting revenge on their former masters. The rebellion's growing strength and audacity alarmed the Roman Senate, which began to take the threat more seriously. In 72 BCE, the Senate sent 2 consular armies to crush the revolt. However, Spartacus demonstrated remarkable tactical acumen, employing guerrilla tactics and exploiting his knowledge of the local terrain to outmaneuver and defeat these larger Roman forces. His ability to inspire and lead his men in battle was instrumental in their continued success. One of the most significant engagements of the rebellion was the Battle of Mount Vesuvius. Spartacus, using his tactical ingenuity, tricked the Roman forces into believing they had the rebels trapped. By using vines and ropes, Spartacus and his men descended the steep slopes of the volcano and launched a surprise attack on the Roman camp, resulting in a decisive victory. This battle not only boosted the morale of Spartacus's followers, but also highlighted the Roman military's vulnerability and the effectiveness of unconventional warfare. As the rebellion continued, Spartacus's army grew to an estimated 70,000 to 120,000 men, women, and children. This diverse group included runaway slaves, gladiators, and freeborn peasants disaffected by Rome's social and economic inequalities. Spartacus attempted to maintain discipline and order within his ranks, implementing a code of conduct to prevent indiscriminate violence and ensure the fair distribution of spoils. The rebellion's impact extended beyond military confrontations. Spartacus's actions inspired fear and unrest throughout the Italian peninsula. Slave owners and the Roman elite were gripped by panic as news of the revolt spread. The economic consequences were significant as well. Agricultural production was disrupted, and the flow of goods and resources was hindered by the rebels' activities. In response to the growing crisis, the Senate appointed Marcus Licinius Crassus, a wealthy and ambitious nobleman, to lead the campaign against Spartacus. Crassus, determined to prove his military prowess and secure his political future, implemented strict discipline and reorganized the Roman forces. One of his most infamous acts was the decimation of a cohort that had shown cowardice in battle. Every 10th man was executed to instill fear and enforce loyalty among his troops. Crassus pursued a strategy of attrition, aiming to wear down Spartacus's forces through a combination of direct engagements and cutting off their supply lines. He fortified a line of fortifications across the southern Italian peninsula to prevent the rebels from escaping or receiving reinforcements. Despite these efforts, Spartacus managed to break through the Roman lines at one point, showcasing his tactical brilliance once again. The final phase of the rebellion saw Spartacus's army becoming increasingly isolated and desperate. In 71 BCE, Crassus's forces cornered Spartacus in the region of Lucania. The decisive battle took place near the Salaris River. Spartacus, realizing the hopelessness of his situation, made a last stand. He sought to break through the Roman lines and reach safety, but was ultimately overwhelmed by the superior numbers and discipline of Crassus's legions. Spartacus fought valiantly in the battle, reportedly attempting to reach Crassus himself, but he was killed along with most of his followers. The remnants of the rebel army were either captured or killed in subsequent skirmishes. Crassus, to send a strong message and deter future revolts, ordered the crucifixion of 6,000 captured rebels along the Appian Way, the main road leading to Rome. This brutal act served as a grim warning to other slaves and demonstrated the ruthlessness of Roman authority. The Spartacus rebellion had significant and lasting repercussions for Rome. It exposed the inherent risks of relying on a large slave population and highlighted the potential for social unrest. The rebellion also underscored the need for military and political reforms to address the root causes of such uprisings. Crassus's role in suppressing the rebellion elevated his political stature, setting the stage for his future involvement in the first triumvirate with Julius Caesar and Pompey. However, the suppression of the revolt did not lead to significant changes in the conditions of slaves or the underlying social issues that had sparked the uprising. The legacy of Spartacus endured long after his death. His rebellion became a symbol of resistance against oppression and inspired future generations. In Roman literature and later historical accounts, Spartacus was often portrayed as a noble and heroic figure who challenged the might of Rome in a quest for freedom. The Spartacus rebellion also contributed to ongoing debates within Rome about the treatment of slaves and the need for more equitable social and economic policies. Although large-scale slave revolts did not occur again on the same scale, the underlying tensions remained, and the Republic continued to grapple with issues of inequality and social justice. In conclusion, the Spartacus rebellion was a pivotal event in the late Roman Republic that exposed the vulnerabilities of Rome's reliance on slave labor and highlighted the deep-seated social and economic inequalities within Roman society. Spartacus's leadership and tactical brilliance posed a formidable challenge to Roman authority, and the rebellion's suppression had significant political and social repercussions. The legacy of Spartacus as a symbol of resistance against oppression continues to resonate, underscoring the enduring impact of his struggle on the history of Rome and beyond. The Catiline conspiracy, 63-62 BCE, was one of the most dramatic and consequential political crises of the late Roman Republic. Orchestrated by Lucius Sergius Catilina, commonly known as Catiline, the conspiracy aimed to overthrow the Roman government and seize power through violent means. This episode highlighted the deep-seated socio-economic tensions and political instability that plagued the Republic during its final years. Catiline was a patrician with a mixed reputation. He had served as a military commander under Sulla and held various political offices, but his career was marred by allegations of corruption and moral decadence. Despite his noble lineage, Catiline harbored deep resentment toward the Roman elite, whom he blamed for his political failures and financial difficulties. After losing the consular elections multiple times, he decided to take drastic action to achieve his ambitions. The political landscape of Rome at the time was marked by significant social and economic inequalities. The rapid expansion of the Roman Empire had enriched a small elite while exacerbating the plight of the lower classes. Many indebted aristocrats, impoverished veterans, and disenfranchised citizens were frustrated with their exclusion from the benefits of Rome's expanding power. Catiline's platform, which promised debt relief, land redistribution, and other radical reforms, resonated with these disaffected segments of society. Catiline's conspiracy began to take shape in 63 BCE. He and his followers, including several senators and equestrians, plotted to assassinate key senators, including the consul Marcus Tullius Cicero, and seize control of the government. Cicero, a staunch defender of the Republic and a rival of Catiline, was aware of the growing threat posed by Catiline and his supporters. Through his network of informants, Cicero obtained detailed information about the conspiracy. On October 21st, 63 BCE, Cicero convened the Senate and delivered the first of his famous Catilinarian orations, exposing Catiline's plot to the public. He denounced Catiline as a traitor and called for decisive action to protect the Republic. Despite the gravity of Cicero's accusations, Catiline attended the Senate session and defended himself, claiming that he was being persecuted by his political enemies. However, the Senate was convinced of his guilt and granted Cicero emergency powers through the Senatus Consultum Ultimum, effectively allowing him to take any measures necessary to protect the state. Catiline, realizing that his plot had been uncovered, fled Rome to join his followers in Etruria, where they had assembled an armed force. Meanwhile, Cicero continued to rally support against Catiline, leveraging his oratory skills to frame the conspiracy as a grave threat to the Republic. Cicero's second Catilinarian oration, delivered to the public, further galvanized the Roman populace against Catiline and his supporters. Despite Catiline's departure from Rome, his co-conspirators continued to plot within the city. They planned to incite an armed uprising, set fire to Rome, and overthrow the government. Cicero's agents intercepted incriminating letters and obtained confessions from key conspirators, providing concrete evidence of their plans. On December 3rd, Cicero ordered the arrest of the principal conspirators, including Publius Cornelius Lentulus Sura, a former consul and prominent member of the plot. The captured conspirators were brought before the Senate, where Cicero presented the evidence against them. The Senate, convinced of their guilt, debated their fate. The question of how to deal with the conspirators was contentious, as it involved balancing the need for security with adherence to legal norms. Some senators, including Julius Caesar, argued for a more lenient approach, advocating for imprisonment rather than execution. Others, like Cato the Younger, called for their immediate execution to prevent further danger to the Republic. Ultimately, the Senate decided in favor of execution. On December 5th, 63 BCE, Cicero ordered the execution of the conspirators without a formal trial. They were strangled in the Tullianum, an ancient Roman prison. Cicero famously declared vixerunt, they have lived, to signal the end of the conspiracy. With the conspirators in Rome neutralized, Cicero turned his attention to Catiline's forces in Etruria. The Senate dispatched a military force under the command of Gaius Antonius Hybrida, one of the consuls for the year, to confront Catiline. In early 62 BCE, Catiline and his men faced the Roman legions at the Battle of Pistoria. Despite fighting with determination, Catiline's outnumbered and poorly equipped forces were decisively defeated. Catiline himself died in the battle, fighting bravely to the end. The defeat of Catiline's conspiracy had significant repercussions for the Roman Republic. Cicero's handling of the crisis, particularly his decision to execute the conspirators without trial, was both praised and criticized. He was hailed as a savior of the Republic by his supporters, who believed he had averted a major disaster. Cicero's actions earned him the honorary title Pater Patriae, Father of the Fatherland. However, his decision to bypass legal norms and due process set a troubling precedent for future political crises. The extrajudicial executions were later used against him by his political enemies, including Publius Clodius Pulcher, who orchestrated Cicero's exile in 58 BCE. The Catiline conspiracy also exposed the deep social and economic divisions within the Roman Republic. The widespread support for Catiline's radical platform underscored the grievances of various social groups, including indebted aristocrats, veterans, and the urban poor. These underlying tensions continued to fester, contributing to the ongoing instability and violence that plagued the late Republic. Furthermore, the conspiracy highlighted the weaknesses in the Republic's political system, particularly the vulnerability of its institutions to demagoguery and populist rhetoric. Catiline's ability to attract a substantial following despite his controversial methods demonstrated the appeal of radical solutions in times of social and economic distress. This episode served as a warning of the potential for charismatic leaders to exploit the frustrations of marginalized groups for their own gain. The aftermath of the Catiline conspiracy saw Cicero's influence in Roman politics initially rise, but it also marked the beginning of his eventual political decline. His role in the extrajudicial executions became a point of contention, and his enemies, including the populist leader Publius Clodius Pulcher, later used this against him. Cicero's forced exile in 58 BCE was partly a consequence of his actions during the conspiracy, reflecting the contentious and polarized nature of Roman politics. The conspiracy also had broader implications for the future of the Republic. It underscored the fragility of Rome's political institutions and the ease with which they could be manipulated or bypassed in times of crisis. The willingness of the Senate to grant extraordinary powers to individuals like Cicero and the acceptance of extrajudicial measures highlighted the erosion of traditional Republican values and legal norms. In conclusion, the Catiline conspiracy was a critical episode in the late Roman Republic that revealed the deep-rooted social and economic issues, the fragility of political institutions, and the dangerous potential for populist uprisings. It underscored the challenges faced by the Republic in maintaining stability and highlighted the need for reforms to address the underlying causes of unrest. The events surrounding the conspiracy and Cicero's response left a lasting legacy on Roman political culture and set the stage for the further turmoil and eventual transition from republic to empire. The first triumvirate was an informal political alliance between Gaius Julius Caesar, Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, Pompey the Great, and Marcus Licinius Crassus, formed around 60 BCE. This alliance was a strategic move by three of the most powerful men in Rome to consolidate their power and achieve their individual goals in the face of significant opposition from the Senate and other political factions. Julius Caesar, a rising political star, had already built a reputation for charisma, military prowess, and political acumen. Despite his noble lineage, Caesar was deeply in debt, partly due to his extravagant public works projects and political campaigns aimed at gaining favor among the Roman populace. His ambition to achieve the highest offices in the Roman Republic and secure military commands required substantial financial and political support. Pompey the Great, a celebrated military commander, had earned his title through a series of successful campaigns in Sicily, Africa, and the East. His defeat of Mithridates VI of Pontus and the suppression of piracy in the Mediterranean further cemented his reputation as one of Rome's greatest generals. However, despite his military successes, Pompey struggled to gain political support from the Senate for the land settlements he promised his veterans and the ratification of his eastern conquests. Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome, had amassed his fortune through real estate investments, slave trading, and various business ventures. His financial resources made him a significant political player as he funded political campaigns and gained allies through his wealth. Crassus sought military glory to rival that of Pompey and to enhance his political standing. His role in suppressing the Spartacus rebellion demonstrated his military capabilities, but he yearned for more substantial military achievements. The formation of the first triumvirate was driven by mutual self-interest. Each member recognized that their individual ambitions could be better achieved through collaboration rather than competition. Caesar needed financial and political support to pursue his ambitions. Pompey required legislative approval for his settlements and commands. Crassus sought military command and further political influence. By pooling their resources and leveraging their combined influence, they could overcome the opposition from the Senate and other political factions. The first significant action of the triumvirate was to secure Caesar's election as consul in 59 BCE. Once in office, Caesar pursued an aggressive legislative agenda that included land reforms for Pompey's veterans and measures to alleviate debt, benefiting Crassus and his supporters. These actions were met with fierce resistance from the Senate, particularly from figures like Cato the Younger, who viewed the triumvirate as a threat to the Republic's traditional governance. To bypass senatorial opposition, Caesar used the popular assemblies to pass his legislation, leveraging his skills as an orator and the support of the people. He also strengthened the triumvirate's personal bonds through marriage, offering his daughter Julia in marriage to Pompey. This alliance through matrimony bolstered the political and personal ties between Caesar and Pompey, though it did little to ease the underlying tensions. After his consulship, Caesar secured a 5-year command in the provinces of Cisalpine Gaul, Transalpine Gaul, and Illyricum with proconsular imperium. This command was crucial for Caesar, providing him with the opportunity to gain military glory, secure wealth, and build a loyal army. His campaigns in Gaul, which began in 58 BCE, would become legendary and significantly enhance his power and influence. While Caesar was campaigning in Gaul, Pompey and Crassus remained in Rome, where their alliance faced challenges. The death of Julia in 54 BCE weakened the personal bond between Caesar and Pompey. Additionally, tensions between Pompey and Crassus increased as they competed for influence. In an effort to renew their alliance and address growing political instability, the triumvirate held a conference at Lucca in 56 BCE. There, they agreed to extend Caesar's command in Gaul, grant Pompey and Crassus joint consulships for 55 BCE, and secure future commands for both men, Pompey in Spain and Crassus in Syria. The consulships of Pompey and Crassus in 55 BCE were marked by their attempts to solidify their power and advance their individual interests. Pompey focused on consolidating his influence in Spain, while Crassus prepared for his campaign in the east against the Parthian Empire. However, the death of Crassus in 53 BCE during the ill-fated campaign against the Parthians at the Battle of Carrhae marked the beginning of the end for the triumvirate. With Crassus's death, the balance of power shifted, and the alliance between Caesar and Pompey began to deteriorate. The political climate in Rome became increasingly polarized as Caesar's ambitions clashed with those of the Senate and Pompey. In 50 BCE, the Senate, led by Pompey and his allies, ordered Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Caesar, aware that returning without the protection of his legions would leave him vulnerable to prosecution and political retribution, refused. Instead, he crossed the Rubicon River in 49 BCE with his army, a deliberate act of insurrection that marked the beginning of the Civil War. The first triumvirate's failure to sustain their alliance ultimately led to a series of civil wars that would transform the Roman Republic. The initial collaboration between Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus had temporarily shifted the balance of power away from the Senate and towards individual military leaders. However, the inherent tensions and competing ambitions within the triumvirate made long-term cooperation impossible. The legacy of the first triumvirate is significant in the context of Roman history. It demonstrated the increasing importance of personal alliances and military power in Roman politics, setting a precedent for future political arrangements and conflicts. The alliance's rise and fall highlighted the weaknesses and instability of the Republic's political system, foreshadowing the eventual transition from Republic to Empire. The formation and dissolution of the First Triumvirate had far-reaching consequences for the Roman Republic. To fully understand its impact, it's essential to delve deeper into the dynamics between Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus, and the events that unfolded as their alliance unraveled. Caesar's tenure as the governor of Gaul was marked by a series of military campaigns that greatly enhanced his reputation and power. His initial victory over the Helvetii and subsequent triumph over the Germanic tribes led by Ariovistus demonstrated his military prowess and secured Rome's northern borders. However, it was his extended campaigns against the Gallic tribes that cemented his legacy. The Belgae campaign in 57 BCE was particularly notable. Faced with a coalition of tribes in northern Gaul, Caesar employed a mix of direct assaults and psychological tactics to break their resistance. The victory at the Battle of the Sabes was a testament to the discipline and effectiveness of the Roman legions under Caesar's command. The naval campaign against the Veneti in 56 BCE showcased Caesar's adaptability and strategic ingenuity. Despite facing a formidable maritime adversary, Caesar's forces achieved a decisive victory, capturing the Veneti leaders and demonstrating Roman dominance over land and sea. Caesar's campaigns were not without challenges. The widespread revolt led by Ambiorix in 54 BCE posed a significant threat with the ambush and destruction of a Roman legion at Atuatuca, highlighting the dangers of guerrilla warfare. Caesar's response was swift and brutal, as he methodically dismantled the rebel forces, ensuring the security of Roman interests in the region. The Great Revolt of 52 BCE, led by Vercingetorix, was the climax of Caesar's Gallic Wars. Vercingetorix's ability to unite the Gallic tribes presented a formidable challenge. The Siege of Alesia, where Caesar's engineering brilliance and strategic acumen shone, ended with the capture of Vercingetorix and the complete subjugation of Gaul. This victory not only expanded Roman territory significantly, but also provided Caesar with immense wealth and resources. While Caesar was consolidating his power in Gaul, the political situation in Rome remained volatile. Pompey and Crassus, now the most powerful figures in Rome after Caesar, faced their own challenges. Pompey's efforts to secure his veterans' land settlements and to gain political control in Spain required delicate negotiations and political maneuvering. Crassus, on the other hand, focused on leveraging his wealth to gain influence and preparing for his campaign against the Parthians. The conference at Lucca in 56 BCE was a critical moment for the triumvirate. It underscored the necessity of maintaining their alliance to achieve their individual goals. The agreement to extend Caesar's command in Gaul, grant Pompey and Crassus joint consulships, and secure future commands for both men illustrated their strategic collaboration. However, the inherent tensions and personal ambitions of each member made the alliance increasingly fragile. Crassus's campaign against the Parthians in 53 BCE ended in disaster at the Battle of Carrhae, where he was killed and his forces were decimated. This defeat had significant repercussions. Crassus's death removed the financial and political balance he provided within the triumvirate, exacerbating the rivalry between Caesar and Pompey. The relationship between Caesar and Pompey, initially strengthened through mutual benefit and the marriage alliance with Julia, began to deteriorate after Julia's death in 54 BCE. Without the personal bond that had helped maintain their political alliance, suspicions and rivalries intensified. Pompey's alignment with the Senate and the Optimates faction further strained his relationship with Caesar. The Senate, increasingly wary of Caesar's growing power and the loyalty of his legions, sought to curb his influence. They viewed Pompey as a counterbalance to Caesar's ambitions and began to support him more openly. In 50 BCE, the Senate, led by Pompey and his allies, passed a decree ordering Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Caesar, recognizing the political trap and the risk of prosecution without the protection of his legions, refused to comply. Instead, he famously crossed the Rubicon River in 49 BCE, declaring Alea iacta est, the die is cast, and marched on Rome, initiating a civil war. The civil war between Caesar and Pompey was a pivotal conflict that reshaped the Roman Republic. Pompey, initially commanding the support of the Senate and the resources of the Roman state, prepared to face Caesar's forces. However, Caesar's rapid advance and strategic brilliance caught Pompey and his allies off guard. Caesar's initial victories in Italy forced Pompey to retreat to Greece, where he gathered his forces. The decisive Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BCE saw Caesar's numerically inferior forces achieve a stunning victory over Pompey. Pompey fled to Egypt, where he was assassinated upon arrival, marking the end of his political and military career. Caesar's victory in the Civil War consolidated his power and marked the decline of the Roman Republic. He pursued a series of campaigns to eliminate remaining resistance, securing victories in Egypt, Africa, and Spain. His triumphs in these campaigns cemented his status as the dominant figure in Rome. The aftermath of the Civil War saw Caesar implement a series of reforms aimed at stabilizing the Republic and addressing long-standing issues. He introduced measures to alleviate debt, reformed the calendar, and initiated public works projects to provide employment and improve infrastructure. However, his centralization of power and appointment as dictator for life sparked fears of tyranny among the Senate and other political factions. The assassination of Caesar on the Ides of March in 44 BCE by a group of senators, including Brutus and Cassius, was a desperate attempt to restore the Republic. Instead, it plunged Rome into further chaos and led to another series of civil wars. The power vacuum created by Caesar's death ultimately facilitated the rise of his heir, Octavian, later Augustus, who established the Roman Empire. The First Triumvirate's legacy is profound in the context of Roman history. It marked the beginning of the end for the Roman Republic, highlighting the increasing importance of military power and personal alliances in Roman politics. The alliances' rise and fall underscored the weaknesses and instability of the Republic's political system, foreshadowing its transformation into an imperial state. In conclusion, the First Triumvirate was a strategic alliance that temporarily shifted the balance of power in the Roman Republic. The collaboration between Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus enabled them to achieve their individual ambitions while challenging the traditional structures of Roman governance. However, the inherent tensions and competing ambitions within the triumvirate ultimately led to its dissolution and a series of conflicts that reshaped Roman history. The legacy of the First Triumvirate continues to be a testament to the complex interplay of power, ambition, and politics in the late Roman Republic. The Gallic Wars, waged by Julius Caesar from 58 to 50 BCE, were a series of military campaigns that expanded Roman territory and significantly increased Caesar's power and influence. Documented in Caesar's own writings, Commentarii de Bello Gallico, commentaries on the Gallic War, these campaigns are renowned for their strategic brilliance, tactical innovation, and dramatic impact on the Roman Republic. The Gallic Wars began in 58 BCE when the Helvetii, a Gallic tribe, attempted to migrate from their homeland in modern Switzerland to Western Gaul. Their migration threatened the stability of the region and the security of Roman allies. Caesar, serving as the governor of Cisalpine Gaul and Transalpine Gaul, saw an opportunity to gain military glory and secure Rome's northern borders. He quickly mobilized his legions to intercept the Helvetii and defeated them at the Battle of Bibracte. The victory over the Helvetii was significant not only because it stopped the migration, but also because it demonstrated Caesar's military capabilities and established his authority in the region. The success at Bibracte solidified his reputation and set the stage for further campaigns. Following his victory over the Helvetii, Caesar turned his attention to the Germanic tribes led by Ariovistus, who had crossed the Rhine and established a presence in Gaul. Ariovistus posed a significant threat to Roman interests, and Caesar's swift and decisive action at the Battle of Vosges expelled the Germanic invaders, solidifying his reputation as a formidable military commander. Caesar's confrontation with Ariovistus was marked by a blend of diplomatic maneuvering and military force. Initially, he attempted to negotiate with the Germanic king, but when talks broke down, Caesar's legions engaged and decisively defeated the Germanic forces. This victory not only removed a major threat, but also demonstrated Rome's commitment to protecting its allies and maintaining stability in the region. In 57 BCE, Caesar launched a campaign against the Belgae, a powerful coalition of tribes in northern Gaul. The Belgae, alarmed by Roman expansion, had formed an alliance to resist Caesar's advances. The campaign was marked by a series of battles, including the decisive Battle of the Sabes, where Caesar's tactical acumen and the discipline of the Roman legions secured a crushing victory over the Belgae. The Belgae campaign was one of the most challenging and complex operations of the Gallic Wars. The Belgae were known for their fierce resistance and formidable fighting capabilities. Caesar's strategy involved a combination of direct assaults, sieges, and the use of local intelligence to outmaneuver and defeat the allied tribes. His ability to adapt to the changing dynamics of the battlefield and leverage the strengths of his legions was critical to his success. The following year, in 56 BCE, Caesar focused on the Veneti, a seafaring tribe on the western coast of Gaul. The Veneti had captured several Roman officers and demanded ransom. In response, Caesar built a fleet and engaged the Veneti in a naval battle. The Romans, using innovative tactics to counter the Veneti's superior ships, achieved a decisive victory, capturing and executing the Veneti leaders to deter further resistance. The naval campaign against the Veneti showcased Caesar's versatility and ingenuity as a commander. Despite facing a well-prepared and resourceful enemy, Caesar's forces adapted to the maritime environment, employing specialized tactics to neutralize the Veneti's advantages. The destruction of the Veneti's power base was a significant achievement that secured Roman control over the coastal regions and demonstrated Rome's dominance both on land and at sea. One of the most challenging periods of the Gallic Wars occurred in 54 BCE, when Caesar faced a widespread revolt led by the Eburones under the chieftains Ambiorix and Catuvolcus. The revolt was sparked by Roman demands for grain and the harsh winter conditions that strained the resources of the Gallic tribes. Ambiorix cleverly ambushed and destroyed a Roman legion and its auxiliary forces at the Battle of Atuatuca. In retaliation, Caesar launched a relentless campaign to punish the rebels, systematically destroying their settlements and capturing or killing those involved in the revolt. The rebellion led by Ambiorix highlighted the resilience and determination of the Gallic tribes to resist Roman domination. The ambush and annihilation of a Roman legion underscored the vulnerabilities of Caesar's forces and the challenges of maintaining control over a vast and restive territory. Caesar's response was swift and brutal, employing scorched earth tactics and relentless pursuit to crush the rebellion and reassert Roman authority. In 53 BCE, Caesar dealt with further unrest among the Gauls, including the suppression of a rebellion led by the Senones and Carnutes. The culmination of the Gallic resistance came in 52 BCE with the Great Revolt led by Vercingetorix, the chieftain of the Arverni tribe. Vercingetorix managed to unite several Gallic tribes in a concerted effort to expel the Romans from Gaul. The revolt began with the massacre of Roman settlers in Cenabum, modern Orleans, by the Carnutes, followed by a widespread uprising across central and southern Gaul. Vercingetorix employed scorched earth tactics, destroying crops and villages to deprive the Romans of supplies. Caesar responded with a series of swift and decisive actions, besieging and capturing key strongholds to weaken the Gallic coalition. The decisive confrontation between Caesar and Vercingetorix occurred at the siege of Alesia in 52 BCE. Vercingetorix had fortified himself in the hilltop stronghold of Alesia, hoping to outlast the Roman siege and rely on relief forces from other Gallic tribes. Caesar, demonstrating his engineering prowess, constructed a double line of fortifications around Alesia, one to besiege the town and another to defend against the Gallic relief forces. The siege was a test of endurance and strategy for both sides. Despite several attempts by the Gallic relief forces to break the Roman lines, Caesar's fortifications and the discipline of his troops held firm. Eventually, the relief forces were defeated, and Vercingetorix, realizing the futility of further resistance, surrendered. His capture marked the end of significant organized resistance to Roman rule in Gaul. The victory at Alesia and the subsequent subjugation of Gaul had far-reaching consequences. The annexation of Gaul significantly expanded Roman territory, providing immense wealth and resources that bolstered the Roman economy. The addition of Gaul also served as a buffer against potential invasions from Germanic tribes and other external threats. For Caesar personally, the Gallic Wars were a triumph that elevated his status and influence. His legions, loyal and battle-hardened, became a formidable force under his command. The wealth and spoils from the campaigns helped to alleviate his debts and fund his political ambitions. Caesar's detailed accounts of the wars, written in a clear and accessible style, served as effective propaganda, enhancing his reputation in Rome. However, Caesar's growing power and popularity also alarmed the Senate and his rivals, particularly Pompey. The Senate, concerned about Caesar's ambitions and the loyalty of his legions, sought to curb his influence. The political tension between Caesar and the Senate, exacerbated by his military successes, set the stage for the subsequent civil war that would ultimately lead to the end of the Roman Republic. The Gallic Wars also had a lasting impact on Roman military strategy and tactics. Caesar's use of engineering, rapid maneuvers, and psychological warfare set new standards for Roman commanders. His ability to adapt to different combat situations, from large-scale battles to sieges and guerrilla warfare, showcased the versatility and effectiveness of the Roman legions. The political repercussions of the Gallic Wars were profound. Caesar's successes made him immensely popular with the Roman people and his troops, but they also made him a threat to the established order. The Senate, led by Pompey and other influential senators, viewed Caesar's growing power with suspicion and sought to curtail his influence. This political rivalry culminated in the Senate's demand that Caesar disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Caesar's refusal to comply with the Senate's demands and his subsequent crossing of the Rubicon River in 49 BCE was a direct challenge to the authority of the Senate and marked the beginning of the Civil War. The phrase "crossing the Rubicon" has since become synonymous with making an irreversible decision. Caesar's actions set the stage for a conflict that would ultimately lead to the fall of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. The Gallic Wars also had significant social and economic impacts. The influx of wealth from the conquered territories boosted the Roman economy, and the distribution of spoils among Caesar's soldiers ensured their loyalty. The expansion of Roman territory brought new resources and opportunities, but it also required the integration of diverse populations into the Roman state, posing administrative and governance challenges. In conclusion, the Gallic Wars were a defining period in Julius Caesar's career and in the history of the Roman Republic. The campaigns not only expanded Rome's territory and wealth, but also significantly altered the political dynamics within Rome. Caesar's military genius and the loyalty of his legions propelled him to unprecedented heights of power, ultimately contributing to the downfall of the Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. The legacy of the Gallic Wars, as chronicled by Caesar himself, continues to be a testament to his military prowess and the transformative impact of his conquests. Julius Caesar's rise to power culminated in his appointment as dictator, a position that granted him unprecedented control over the Roman Republic. His tenure as dictator from 49 BCE until his assassination in 44 BCE was marked by significant political, social, and economic reforms that aimed to stabilize and transform Rome. However, his concentration of power and autocratic style also engendered significant opposition, ultimately leading to his assassination and the end of the Roman Republic. Caesar's journey to dictatorship began with his refusal to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen, as demanded by the Senate in 50 BCE. By crossing the Rubicon River in 49 BCE with his legions, Caesar initiated a civil war that pitted him against the senatorial forces led by Pompey. The phrase "crossing the Rubicon" has since symbolized making a decisive, irreversible action. The ensuing civil war was swift and brutal. Caesar's military genius and the loyalty of his troops led to a series of rapid victories. He first secured Italy and then pursued Pompey to Greece, where he defeated him at the Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BCE. Pompey's subsequent flight to Egypt and assassination marked the collapse of the senatorial resistance. But Caesar's campaigns continued as he consolidated his power, defeating remaining Pompeian forces in Africa and Spain. Upon his return to Rome, Caesar was appointed dictator, initially for a short term and later for 10 years, and finally as dictator perpetuo, dictator for life, in 44 BCE. His accumulation of power allowed him to implement a broad range of reforms designed to address the Republic's deep-seated issues. One of Caesar's primary political reforms was the expansion of the Senate from 600 to 900 members, incorporating loyal supporters, provincials, and even some non-Italians. This expansion diluted the power of the old aristocracy and ensured a broader representation of Rome's diverse empire. He reorganized the administrative structure of Rome, centralizing authority and reducing corruption. Magistrates and officials were appointed based on merit and loyalty, rather than on traditional aristocratic privilege. Caesar also reformed the judicial system, creating a more efficient and fair legal framework. New laws to curb bribery and corruption were introduced, ensuring that the courts were more accessible and just. Caesar implemented several economic reforms to stabilize the Roman economy. He addressed the widespread debt crisis by canceling a portion of all debts, capping interest rates, and allowing debtors to deduct the value of property from their debts. These measures helped stabilize the economy and reduce social tensions. He initiated extensive public works projects, including the construction of new buildings, temples, and infrastructure such as roads and aqueducts. These projects provided employment and improved the urban landscape of Rome. Continuing the agrarian reforms initiated by the Gracchi brothers and others, he redistributed public land to veterans and the poor, aiming to revive the class of small farmers and reduce urban overcrowding. To address food shortages and ensure the loyalty of the urban poor, Caesar reformed the grain dole, distributing subsidized grain more efficiently and equitably. He founded several colonies in the provinces, settling veterans and landless citizens in newly conquered territories. These colonies helped Romanize the provinces and alleviate social pressures in Italy. One of Caesar's most enduring legacies was the reform of the Roman calendar. With the help of the Alexandrian astronomer Sosigenes, he introduced the Julian calendar, which more accurately reflected the solar year. The new calendar included a leap year system and set the length of the year at 365.25 days. This reform corrected the inaccuracies of the previous lunar-based calendar and provided a more consistent and reliable timekeeping system. Caesar's reforms were not limited to administrative and economic changes. They also involved a significant centralization of power. He took on numerous titles and roles, including Pontifex Maximus, chief priest, augur, and pater patriae, father of the fatherland. By consolidating religious, political, and military authority in his person, Caesar effectively became the supreme ruler of Rome. Caesar maintained direct control over the Roman legions, ensuring their loyalty through personal leadership and generous rewards. His control of the military was a critical factor in his ability to maintain power and implement his reforms. He assumed the powers of a tribune, allowing him to propose legislation directly to the popular assemblies and veto decisions of the Senate. This move further marginalized the Senate and strengthened his direct appeal to the people. He extended his patronage to various social classes, securing their support through public entertainments, gladiatorial games, and personal acts of generosity. His ability to connect with the populace and address their needs was a cornerstone of his rule. Despite his popular support and numerous reforms, Caesar's autocratic style and concentration of power alienated many traditionalists within the Senate and the aristocracy. His assumption of the title dictator for life in early 44 BCE was seen by many as a clear step toward monarchy, a deeply unpopular notion among the Roman elite who valued their republican heritage. A group of senators, fearing the end of the republic and their loss of power, formed a conspiracy to assassinate Caesar. Leading figures in this plot included Gaius Cassius Longinus, Decimus Junius Brutus, and Marcus Junius Brutus, the latter of whom was believed by some to be Caesar's illegitimate son, or at least his protege. The conspirators justified their actions by claiming they were saving the Republic from tyranny. The assassination of Caesar took place on the Ides of March, March 15th, 44 BCE. The conspirators lured him to a meeting at the theater of Pompey, under the pretense of presenting him with a petition. Once there, they surrounded him and stabbed him 23 times. Caesar's assassination was a brutal and chaotic event, with accounts suggesting he initially resisted before succumbing to his wounds. His last words, according to some sources, were, "Et tu, Brute?" And you, Brutus? Expressing his shock and betrayal upon seeing Brutus among his attackers. The immediate aftermath of the assassination was marked by confusion and chaos. The conspirators had expected to be hailed as liberators, but instead they faced an uncertain and hostile reaction from the Roman populace. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal supporter and co-consul, quickly seized control of the situation, securing Caesar's will and papers. The death of Caesar plunged Rome into another series of civil wars. Mark Antony and Octavian, Caesar's grandnephew and adopted heir, initially cooperated to defeat the forces of the assassins at the Battle of Philippi in 42 BCE. However, their alliance eventually broke down, leading to a final conflict that ended with Octavian's victory at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. Octavian, later known as Augustus, became the first Roman emperor, marking the end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire. Caesar's reforms and centralization of power left a lasting legacy. His actions set precedents for the future governance of Rome, and many of his reforms continued to influence Roman society for centuries. The Julian calendar remained in use for over 1,600 years, until it was refined into the Gregorian calendar in 1582. His redistribution of land and economic policies helped to stabilize Rome in the short term, though the social tensions he sought to address persisted. Caesar's rise and fall highlighted the inherent weaknesses of the Roman Republic, which had become increasingly unable to manage the vast territories and diverse populations under its control. The concentration of power in the hands of a single ruler, while controversial and ultimately fatal for Caesar, became the template for the subsequent Roman emperors. Julius Caesar's dictatorship was a transformative period in Roman history. His ambitious reforms sought to address the Republic's deep-rooted issues and stabilize its institutions, but his autocratic methods and accumulation of power also alienated many within the traditional Roman elite. His assassination on the Ides of March marked the end of his rule, but set in motion the events that would lead to the rise of the Roman Empire. Caesar's legacy as a military genius, reformer, and central figure in the transition from republic to empire remains a pivotal chapter in the story of Rome. Julius Caesar's assassination on the Ides of March, March 15th, 44 BCE, is one of the most dramatic and pivotal events in Roman history. This momentous act marked the culmination of rising tensions within the Roman Republic, driven by fears of Caesar's growing power and potential monarchic ambitions. The assassination, its aftermath, and the ensuing political upheaval profoundly impacted the future of Rome, leading to the end of the Republic and the dawn of the Roman Empire. The roots of the conspiracy against Caesar lay in his unprecedented accumulation of power and his reforms, which threatened the traditional republican values cherished by the Roman elite. As dictator perpetuo, dictator for life, Caesar wielded near absolute authority, implementing a wide range of political, economic, and social reforms. While many of these reforms were beneficial and necessary, they also undermined the power of the Senate and the traditional republican institutions. Caesar's centralization of power alienated many senators who feared the erosion of their influence and the rise of autocracy. His acceptance of titles such as Father of the Fatherland and his portrait on coins, traditionally reserved for deified or deceased individuals, fueled suspicions that he sought to become king. Rome's history of monarchy, ending with the expulsion of the last king, Tarquin the Proud, left a deep aversion to kingship, and any hint of its return was met with fierce resistance. The conspirators, led by Gaius Cassius Longinus and Marcus Junius Brutus, were motivated by a mix of personal grievances, political ideology, and a genuine belief in preserving the Republic. Brutus, in particular, was a complex figure. He was a close friend of Caesar and had benefited from his patronage, yet he was also deeply committed to republican ideals. The inclusion of Brutus, a figure with strong moral and philosophical convictions, lent the conspiracy a veneer of legitimacy and honor. In the months leading up to the assassination, the conspirators met secretly to plan their act. They understood that their success depended on swift and decisive action, coupled with the support, or at least acquiescence, of the broader political community. The conspirators aimed to present the assassination as a noble act of tyrannicide rather than a sordid political murder. The chosen date for the assassination was the Ides of March, a date laden with traditional and religious significance. The conspirators decided to carry out their plan during a Senate meeting at the Theater of Pompey, where Caesar would be relatively unprotected. On the morning of March 15th, despite receiving multiple warnings and omens of danger, Caesar decided to attend the Senate session. According to historical accounts, his wife, Calpurnia, had experienced disturbing dreams and begged him to stay home, but he was persuaded by Decimus Brutus, one of the conspirators, to go to the Senate. As Caesar entered the Senate chamber, he was surrounded by the conspirators, who feigned a petition for the recall of his exiled brother. According to legend, Caesar initially dismissed their pleas, but was soon overwhelmed by the sudden and coordinated attack. The conspirators drew their daggers and struck, delivering 23 stab wounds. Caesar reportedly tried to defend himself, but ultimately succumbed to the onslaught. His famous last words, "Et tu, Brute," and "You, Brutus," have been immortalized in literature and art, capturing the sense of betrayal he felt upon recognizing his friend among the assassins. The immediate aftermath of the assassination was chaotic. The conspirators, expecting to be hailed as liberators, were met with uncertainty and fear. The Senate was thrown into turmoil, and many senators fled the scene, unsure of what would follow. The conspirators marched to the Capitoline Hill, hoping to rally support and assert their control over the city. However, the reaction of the Roman populace was unpredictable. While some welcomed the death of the dictator, others mourned Caesar, who had been a popular figure among the common people and soldiers. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal supporter and co-consul, quickly seized control of the situation. He retrieved Caesar's will and papers, taking steps to ensure a smooth transition of power. Antony's oratory skills and political acumen played a crucial role in shaping public opinion in the days following the assassination. In a carefully orchestrated funeral speech, Antony read Caesar's will, which revealed his generous bequest to the citizens of Rome and his plans for public gardens. This revelation stirred public sentiment against the conspirators and led to widespread unrest. The conspirators, realizing that they had miscalculated the public's reaction, sought to negotiate with Antony and the Senate. They were granted amnesty and allowed to return to their homes, but the political landscape had irrevocably shifted. The power vacuum left by Caesar's death led to a struggle for dominance among his former allies and enemies. In the ensuing months, the fragile alliances and rivalries within the Roman political sphere became more pronounced. Mark Antony, Octavian, Caesar's grandnephew and adopted heir, and Marcus Aemilius Lepidus formed the Second Triumvirate in 43 BCE, ostensibly to restore order and avenge Caesar's death. This new alliance was marked by its ruthless pursuit of power and the elimination of political opponents. The Second Triumvirate launched a campaign against the conspirators, leading to the decisive Battle of Philippi in 42 BCE. The forces of Antony and Octavian faced off against the armies of Brutus and Cassius. The battle ended in the defeat of the conspirators, with both Brutus and Cassius committing suicide to avoid capture. The defeat of the assassins marked the end of the immediate resistance to Caesar's legacy, but it did not bring peace to Rome. The power struggle between Antony and Octavian eventually culminated in another civil war. Antony's alliance with Cleopatra VII of Egypt and his perceived Eastern ambitions alienated many Romans. The propaganda war between Octavian and Antony intensified, with Octavian portraying himself as the defender of Roman values against Antony's alleged decadence and foreign influence. The conflict reached its climax at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, where Octavian's forces decisively defeated Antony and Cleopatra's fleet. Following their defeat, Antony and Cleopatra retreated to Egypt, where they eventually took their own lives. Octavian returned to Rome as the unchallenged ruler, ushering in a new era. In 27 BCE, Octavian was granted the title Augustus by the Senate, marking the beginning of the Roman Empire. As the first Roman emperor, Augustus implemented a series of reforms that stabilized the state and established a new political order. The Republic, with its complex system of checks and balances, was replaced by an imperial system centered on the authority of a single ruler. The assassination of Julius Caesar and the subsequent events had profound and lasting impacts on Roman history. Caesar's death marked the end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of a new political order. His legacy, both as a military genius and a controversial dictator, continued to shape Roman and world history for centuries. Caesar's reforms, many of which were retained and expanded upon by Augustus, laid the foundation for the Roman Empire's administrative and political systems. His centralization of power and creation of a professional bureaucracy set precedents that would endure throughout the imperial period. The Julian calendar, introduced by Caesar, remained in use for over 1,600 years and was only slightly modified into the Gregorian calendar that is still used today. The events surrounding the Ides of March also served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of concentrated power and the fragility of political institutions. The assassination highlighted the deep-seated tensions and divisions within Roman society, as well as the challenges of balancing reform and stability. The conspirators' belief that they were saving the Republic by eliminating Caesar ultimately led to its demise, demonstrating the complexities and unintended consequences of political action. In conclusion, the assassination of Julius Caesar on the Ides of March was a pivotal moment in Roman history, marking the end of the Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. The events leading up to and following his death reveal the intricate interplay of personal ambition, political ideology, and historical forces. Caesar's legacy, both celebrated and condemned, continues to resonate as a symbol of the tumultuous transition from republic to empire. The Ides of March remains a powerful reminder of the enduring impact of political decisions and the unpredictable nature of history. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. For more captivating stories and insights, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your thoughts and questions. Leave them in the comments below. Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video.